Hello, my friends. Welcome to A Common Touch of Fantasy. And today I'm reviewing Bad Feminist by Roxane Gay. And this video is going to be a little bit different. For one, I am just recording it on my computer. And I won't be editing this. I think that when it comes to this subject, I think like sincerity and complete open honesty is the best thing to possibly do. And I want to talk about that a little bit. This is definitely not your typical book review. This is more about me and how I felt while reading this book and after reading this book. Listen, guys, I live a very sheltered life. I've lived a rather privileged life. You know, sure, there's some things in my life that weren't that great, but for the most part, I've lived a rather privileged life. I've had a loving family, a Christian home. I've not been really that poor. I've been able to go to school, been able to go to college. I've had a lot of support from friends and family, and you know, I'm a white guy, and I realize now that after reading this, because Roxane Gay in this book talks about privilege and how we need to realize the privilege that we have and how we grew up, but also to see in other people the things that they did not have. And that's important. It's important when we talk about women in society and minorities in society, specifically Black Americans. Roxane Gay is a Black American woman, and I needed to read something like this. Racial issues in the area of the country that I live in is a big deal. And feminism is a big deal on Booktube and a big deal with some people in my life too. And I needed to learn more about these subjects because the small little understanding that I have of it before I read this book, it was not enough. It was just not enough. There was definitely some things that I thought were wrong, but I found out I think it was very wrong. And this is definitely not the last book I'll read on women's issues or racial issues, because I need this in my life, because I don't have like a Black woman in my life telling me the issues that she grew up with, the issues that she has at work, the issues she has with relating with people and how people treat her. I don't have that close of a friend for her to talk to me about those issues. And that's why nonfiction, memoirs, autobiographies, books like this is so important. We get to connect to a real person, and our empathy kicks in because we're reading an entire book about this person's life, and we just connect with them. And the empathy that we share with them is so important. Reading an article online, reading a small little tidbit of something online, it's very difficult to really empathize with the author. It's difficult to really connect with the author. So that's where reading a longer book really pays off, because I felt like I really empathized with her now. I really connected with her, who she was, and her struggles. And I really enjoyed this a lot. She covers so much. So this is like a book just filled with essays. And she covers so many different subjects that she's dealt with and things that she feels about. Things from working in the academic community and how people treat her as a Black woman. When she was talking about how she walked past a group of other graduate students that were teachers, and they said something like, oh, she must have been the affirmative action hire on or recruit. like that just destroyed her, and she was so good at what she does. Like her drive to become a great educator and to be more than what she is was fantastic. But she worked so hard, but people still thought that it was just because of like an affirmative action hire or recruitment. And like I just felt so bad for her because she felt that way. And then there's so many issues on race here. She doesn't really know how to communicate with her people of color, her students and stuff that come to her for help at times. And she just sees all these issues with race, and it's just very eye-opening to see. Just that there isn't really that much of a focus on earning good grades in a lot of the Black Americans' households. And Roxane Gay says, she was very privileged because in her household, like, you studied, you worked your butt off. But she's saying how in other households, coming home with a C or a D is considered a good grade on a test. And that was a big shock for me because I always thought that everyone thought that an A or a B is definitely the good things to get. If you got like a C or a D, you gotta work harder. But the expectations in some houses are not the same. If your family, if some of them never graduated from college or never graduated from high school, and your granddaughter or your son brings home a C, that's a big deal. That's actually good. But Roxane Gay is talking about how we need to uplift these students to make them realize that a C and a D is just getting by, and you need to strive for more. And I just really like this. She talks about entertainment, black television, and black movies and stuff that release, like Tyler Perry movies. And she talks about a lot of the slavery movies that have been out in the last few years and what her response was to those. I found that fascinating. She talks about equal pay. She talks about women's rights, women's reproductive rights. That really has changed the way that I kind of think on abortion and things like that. And it's just a great book to read. Definitely, I recommend this book for someone like myself that doesn't really have someone to talk about these issues with and doesn't have a lot of experience. Most of these essays are more of the superficial, like top layer type of discussions, and it's not really like deep discussions. It's not. So if you've read a lot of feminist books, you probably aren't going to learn a whole lot from this book. Excuse me. But me, as like a new reader of feminism, I found this to be fantastic. I've always been about equality. I've always been about equal pay, equal rights. But I still realize that certain things in my thinking, I have such a long ways to go, and I'm not perfect. I make a lot of mistakes, but I'm going to try to get better, try to be better about it. So thank you for listening to this review. And if you've read this, tell me what you've thought of it. If you're a female and you've read this, tell me what you've thought of it, if it's a decent book on feminism or not. And please like, comment, subscribe. And thanks for watching.